All right. Hey,
All
okay.
right, hello.
So I don't know when people are seeing this or anything, but beginning August 17th, 2024, we have a massive change that we still don't have a lot of clarity on in the real
Hmm.
estate world. So basically, the long story short is commissions have always been paid for the most part, by a seller. So the seller pays both the buyer's agent and the listing agent or the seller's agent. That is still going to be the case, but no longer are we able to advertise the what we call the BAC, the buyer's agent commission on anywhere. A lot of agents are talking about like creative ways to be able to still tell buyer's agents that they're offering commissions, to stay competitive. But all of that is going to be illegal, according
Yeah,
to the
it's
DOJ.
officially not allowed to be in the MLS.
Correct. In
Yeah.
any MLS, and it won't be on Zillow, won't be on Redfin, won't be anywhere. So I don't know how you feel about that. I know we have something we can share, but yeah, what are your quick thoughts on that, Tori?
Well, it's a disruption, but that's okay. Things are going to change pretty significantly, and I'm actually excited about it. I think it's probably a good change. I think it's going to force some more professionalism, which I'm really, really looking forward to. And yeah, I mean, the biggest difference here is, it's always been that the listing agent somewhat negotiates the entire commission, offers part of their commission to the buyer's agent. It's called a buyer's agent commission. And now it's going to be done basically at the time of the offer. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, we are encouraging sellers to still cover that because if the seller's not covering it, who's covering it? Right? The buyer. And so you will be potentially limiting your buyer pool if that's not, you know, if there's no compensation for the buyer's agent, because there's going to be many buyers who can't do that. Beyond that, it's become law that all buyer's agents, and this is what I'm talking about, forcing professionalism that I'm excited about, is that all buyer's agents will be required to get a buyer broker agreement signed before showing the property or even offering real estate advice. So before they show a property, they're going to have an agreement signed for a certain percentage. And there is a percentage that in Oregon, at least, it differs in Oregon and Washington, that is, you know, I don't want to use the word standard,
Common?
but common. That's very common. Yes. And so, what's going to happen is they're going to have the sign. A buyer will want to show a property. This is what I think is going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. But a buyer's agent will call the listing agent and say, is there seller contribution for the buyer's agent commission? And if it's a no, they're either not going to show the property and it'll be up to the buyer, but the buyer will have the option right then and there to say if they want to show the property or not. Because if they can't cover that commission, they're going to have to move on to a different house. Michael, do you have any comments on what I just said so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically what you're going to see is just like anything else in real estate, everything's negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the way it has been, so we still don't know exactly like what the rules are going to be. Because Tori was mentioning, is a buyer going to still show a property, buyer's agent going to show a property that's not offering compensation? I mean, that's in a way that's kind of like saying, are you going to show a property because it's listed too high and you plan on offering lower? Like, no, you're still going to show it. If your client likes it, you're just going to end up offering less. And so, same thing with commissions is the way it's always been is the listing agent has predetermined the commission that they're co-opting. So their cooperating
Mm-hmm.
agent, buyer's agent, we've always predetermined what that commission is going to be. Sometimes for marketing sake, like we will advertise, say the normal rate's 2.5%, we'll advertise 3% to try to get, or even give bonuses to a buyer's agent to bring, a good offer. But right now it's just going to be another negotiation. It's just going to be like price, terms, closing date, whatever, everything. But also in there is going to be how the buyer's agent is going to get paid. Where it gets really weird though is to Tori's point of that one of the requirements nationwide is if you're a realtor, which almost everybody is, but one of the requirements nationwide is that you have to have a buyer broker agreement signed. So before you walk into a door, you have to have a signed agreement with your agent that states how they're going to get paid. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
outrageous to me. because
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that maybe are just looking. Like they're literally just getting started. Like, how does an open house work? Do they have to sign an agreement if they don't have an agreement with the agent that's
Yeah.
showing the house? Like, it's
Hmm.
outrageous how this is, you know, being dealt with. But everything goes. It's everything swings, right? We go far left, we go far right. Like, this is a big movement, pendulum swing, way too far. Because at the end of the day, like for the most part, if we're representing a seller, what's our goal? Our goal is to get the seller as much money as we can. Like, right.
Hmm.
And if
And
we're
not
representing,
negotiate on other terms as well.
yeah, yeah. And if we're representing buyers, to get the best deal we can.
Hmm.
So none of that's changed. I think it makes negotiating even more important, which, like, because one of the big things, especially when the difference, I think the biggest difference between working with a buyer and a seller, honestly, is when you're working with a seller, you figure out, pricing and commissions. When you're working with a buyer, you don't really talk about that. You figure out what can they afford, but you don't talk about how much you're going to get paid because it was
Hmm.
already, so now it's like everything else. I mean, there has to be a ton more upfront education, which to Tori's professionalism point, like it's going to be so good.
Hmm.
I mean, you have to know what you're doing. You have to
Yeah.
explain that to your buyers, your sellers,
And
and
if
the
you
pros and cons.
can't,
Yeah.
well, and the reason I'm excited about it is because if you can't, then nobody's going to sign that with you. And I think we're going to be working with more professional people as a result
Yeah.
because you need to be able to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. You need to show
Well,
your
I think
value.
that,
If you don't show your value, they'll go with someone else. Anyway, that was a little bit of
yeah.
a tangent, but keep going.
No, I just think that the difficult part for the consumer is that they're probably not privy to like actually how this law how's like litigation is played out. But
Hmm.
I think this is going to be like pretty detrimental to the average consumer buyer
I
specifically
agree. I agree.
because there's we work with a lot of agents. Well, for example, the average agent in the Portland metro area sells 3 properties a year. So, and that's the ones that sell properties. So, I mean, but so what will end up happening is like, if you sign an agreement with a realtor that you don't typically you wouldn't end up closing a deal with, like, how are you going to get out of that contract? What if you signed a year-long contract? Because one of the other requirements is they have to have dates in there. Like, it has to have,
Yep.
how long
Hmm.
is this contract good for? What if the
Hmm.
agent's not like in town? So you're going to write like 5 different agents that can show you like it. There's just so much complexity to
Yeah,
this that
there
I
is.
think
There is.
at the end of the day, buyers are just going to sign an agreement with a random agent at the beginning, and then they're going to realize that was a bad idea. I should have actually gotten good representation. How do
Hmm.
I get out of this?
Hmm.
And so it just depends on what you sign, like any other contract, you know.
Hmm.
But at the beginning, I think sellers are going to. This is going to be fantastic for sellers. And the whole idea of this was to make things more transparent, but also make it easier and better for buyers, which is crazy to me. So,
It's not better for buyers. Yeah, especially if they have their down payment, their closing costs, the inspections, high interest rates. Sorry, I shouldn't
yeah,
have said all that. But and then if they probably can't cover the commission. They've saved a long time for a down payment, and it's been more challenging for this newer generation entering into the home buying space to save for a down payment. So if then there's an additional, 2.5% on top of that, it's going to limit the homes that they're either can look at or they're just going to submit an offer and write in the terms that the seller covers the buyer's agent commission anyway, which I think is
yeah,
really relevant. So either they might not show the property at all, which limits your buyer pool, or they offer it. They put it in the offer anyway. So it is negotiable, right? But it's just this next year after August 17th, once it actually starts, is going to be really interesting because we can plan as much as we want, we can speculate as much as we want, but there are going to be things that happen that either we couldn't predict or
yeah.
that we're just going to have to deal with. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, definitely going to have to stay educated on all this and be able to speak about it because things are changing very rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have this little sheet from that the National Association of Realtors came out with, kind of on the overall. I don't know that we necessarily need to share this, but
It's a lot of text.
it's a I was gonna say it's a lot of text. And again, like we don't
Yeah.
really know how it goes out. Like certain states right now, Colorado, I think it's specifically Denver's RML or MLS is not going to listen to the DOJ guidelines, and they're just saying, nope, we're going to still advertise buyer's agent commission.
Seattle as
You know,
well, right?
yeah, Seattle is too. Yeah, there's a couple of these rogue, MLSs that are,
Yeah.
this litigation hasn't been finalized. So, and the DOJ keeps changing on how they're dealing with this, and they're
Yes, they
saying that
do.
it's not over. So it does make sense that, like, why are you going to change the whole thing if you don't actually know how this plays out?
Yeah.
But again, to me, it's like this is almost a nothing situation because like everything is negotiable. It really is.
Yeah,
So
completely.
it kind of has always been a
It
little
was
bit weird.
always negotiable. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing that's funny about this. And then, of course, the media spins it as buyer's agent commissions are going away, which is just simply not true. So, yeah.
I do think you're going to have, like right now, you have kind of what we call discount brokers on the listing side, but you don't really see that on the buyer side. One
True.
reason is in Oregon, you can't give part of your commission to an unlicensed person. So you can't just be like, oh, this seller's offering 2.5%. I'll take, 1.5% and then give my buyer. But you could go
wherever.
Yeah. You could write in that I only want 1% and I'll offer 1.5% less, but nobody ever did that. And so I do think like you will see like discount. I'm just imagining like we're representing a seller, right? And we have a discount broker like coming saying that, no, you don't have to pay us anything. I'm like, would be like, great, fantastic. Or you have someone that's really good at their job, that wants to get paid, whatever, call it 2.5%. It's like at the end of the day, we look at the same things. What's the net? Like how much is our seller walking away with? What are the terms? How are these different agents, like how are they to deal with? It's just it's the same.
And another thing is like, people think of it in one way, which is they think a buyer is representing a buyer, and a listing agent is representing a seller, a buyer's agent is representing a buyer, and it's just about price and they're negotiating price. That's one part of it, and it's important. It's a very important part. But there's so many other things that we're actually collaborating on that benefit both parties, benefit all parties. And so if we don't have somebody who's resourceful and able to do that, deals won't close. I I have a million examples of things that if we weren't collaborating with our co-partner on this, it wouldn't have closed. So if we don't have, someone else who's resourceful on the other line, I think we might see more terminations.
It's going to be chaos.
And it's going to be chaotic. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of chaos, but here we go.
I know.
We like to get in the mud.
Sellers will be fine. Again, like, and that to your point, Tori, is like when you get an offer, if you have two offers and they're identical, like how do you pick the one? How do you pick the one you want to go with? I mean, honestly, it's who do you think is going to close? Like, and so it is kind of a bit of it.
Exactly.
It's not really a gut feeling. Ultimately, it is, but it's how do they communicate? Who's the lender? Like how? What was the process like? The communication before they wrote the offer. There's a lot of just those intangible things that.
Well, and it's taken, but it's like it is a gut thing, kind of, and it's taken, for you and I, hundreds of sales of, working through nuances to understand these tiny little indicators of who's great to work with and who's not. I can have one not 100% of the time, of course, but I can have one conversation with somebody and like, well, it went weird for that reason, or it went really well for this reason, and then we share that with our client, and so that they are completely informed on what's going on. And so again, to Michael's point, you've got two offers. Well, there's other things we're looking for as well, not just what's on the offer. It's like we want to close, we want somebody who's easy to work with. Maybe we have somebody who's willing to change some terms that are more desirable for our client. I mean, there's a lot of nuance that people don't realize.
That's literally why someone hires us. Like, or really any agent that knows what they're doing. It's like, if you have two offers here and but behind this box, they're not going to close. Behind this box, they are. You got to figure out which one that is, right?
Correct.
And if you're just looking at the offer or the paper itself, like you don't know that. But again, that's like why someone hires us, because we can, for the most part, we can tell you like there's a way greater chance that this person's going to close versus this offer.
Right.
But as a seller, you're going to make your own decision. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
best part about it. And
Yeah.
if you make the wrong decision and you're right, great. It's kind of rare though. We kind of always say like we're willing to give it a shot for sure, because we're not always right. But for the most part, it it's pretty it's pretty easy to
Yeah.
to know who knows what they're doing, and
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We'll probably be talking about this a lot just because
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
for us to kind of go back and
Part
forth.
one.
Yeah. So,
Part one of this
all right,
series. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mini
I
series.
know.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be changing constantly. I mean, I see so much like realtors talking about this, and they're like, just like, I'm like, I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
Or
I know.
Or I think you guys are missing the bigger point here. But yeah.
Even you and I have different opinions on certain things, so we'll have to.
Yeah,
we'll have to go through all of it.
Yeah.
Me. Okay.
That's good.
See you.